going.
Hi everyone, and welcome to How Good's Footy in Asia, AFL Asia's official podcast. I'm Matty Gale from Osaka, Japan, your co-host, and our other co-host is over in Saigon, Vietnam. Welcome, Billy Bang Bang Krang.
Thanks, Matty.
We'll get back to you shortly, but more importantly, we're here today to interview one of AFL Asia's poster boys, one of our most decorated players, and one of our most influential on and off the field. He's well accomplished. We'll go more into those details later, but Evan Spargo, fantastic to finally get the chance to interview you. How's things over your way?
Yeah, going well. Go, boys. Thanks for having me on. I'm currently in Melbourne. You wouldn't pick it because I'm wearing a singlet, but I've got the heater roaring. But it's a lovely 18-degree day here. Clear skies. But unfortunately, we have Victoria's not going so well with the pandemic right now. Fortunately, I'm in a suburb that is free of that. But, still a lot of complications going around.
Yeah, in Japan, we're back up to around about 50 or 60 a day in Tokyo alone, which is very similar to Victoria. And they're certainly going through a secondary wave, so it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, unlike Victoria, which is put into lockdown and hot spots there. Osaka, Japan's getting about 5 or 6 a day, and they're still on the level 1 with the contingency plans in place. But how's things over your way, Bill?
Yeah, same story last few weeks. Really all good. Once again, we're just a couple of days from heading up north and playing Hanoi in a fully fledged game of footy. So hanging for that, feeling pretty safe. Looking forward to a hit out.
Yeah, you got yourself a nice haircut there too, Bill. Short, sharp and shiny.
Well, I figured I was going to be, you get a little bit more hipster every week, and then I knew we were next to AFL Asia's male model, so I tried. I did my best. It's a bit of a lost in translation at the hairdresser. Got the GI American Army haircut again.
I like it. You're rocking it.
Don't have a choice.
Bill, head things over to you. I just had a bit of a call up over the loudspeaker from Matsumoto Sensei, but I'm not required, so we'll hand pass straight back and forth straight to you.
All right, Spargs. So tell us about your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and how was your kind of family life in the early days, and your sporting involvement as well?
Yeah. So I grew up in Ivanhoe in Melbourne, and I went to Ivanhoe Grammar School, so pretty nice school. And I guess I just started playing footy when I was younger, but I never really took it seriously. So my mum's Filipino and my dad's Aussie, and it was a nice upbringing. I went back and forth between the Philippines, visited my family here and there. Never really understood the culture. I was a guy who wanted to fit in with everyone at school and be like everyone else. And it's funny, I didn't have a footy team, and when I was in prep, everyone went for Melbourne, so I decided to go for the Melbourne Demons. Wasn't that a shocking decision?
Yeah, I can sympathise.
Just played footy throughout my through school days. I never really played club footy until I was about 14, 15. I just wanted to take it a bit seriously. I was really shy as a kid. I was really low in self-esteem and just I didn't really stand for much. And once I started playing footy, that really ignited me. I really had a passion for it. And I just thought, if I really want to develop myself as a person, I think sport's the best way to do it. So I really knuckled down and just decided to let's really give everything for footy. And I ended up joining one of the junior clubs, Ivanhoe Junior Footy Club. And ever since then, we won in the junior years 2 flags in a row in the under-17s, and just got a real taste for footy and got really fit, helped my self-confidence, and ended up playing in the TSC Cup for the Northern Knights, which is a great honour. And that's how my junior career started, really. It was just a little bit of school footy here and there until I really decided I think this is going to be something that's going to help develop me as a person, not only as an athlete.
Wow. Spargs, I've got 2 sons to a Japanese wife, and likewise, I'm an Australian father, and my wife is an Asian-born mother. What was that like growing up, and did you face any issues surrounding things like racism because you're both Australian and Filipino?
Yeah. So firstly, from my perspective, it was about identity. I didn't know who I was. I know that a part of me was Filipino, but a part of me was Australian, and I gravitated more towards being Australian because in my school there weren't many people who are Asians like me or mixers like me that I wanted to be like everyone else. And I guess I kind of neglected my Filipino side growing up, which is part of the learning. It's part of what we go through when we're younger. And, I wanted to be like everyone else. And in what I got offended when people didn't know who I was and they'd start guessing what countries I'd be from. So I'd get everything, mate. I'd get like your Maori, Indian, Italian, all these kind of, it doesn't help. My middle name's Santillan, right? So like, imagine saying that someone's like, I'm James Baba Brown, and I'm like, I'm Evan Santillan Spargo. And then it's like, it's so different, So it was a loss of identity and trying to find who I am. And I was miserable trying to be someone who I'm not, constantly trying to find myself. And, it wasn't until my late teen years where I accepted, I'm Filipino and I'm proud to be Filipino. And that's my point of difference. It's actually good to stand out like that. It's why be like everyone else and why try to fit in like everyone else. So that's something that I definitely dealt with. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were growing up, how many times did you go and visit the family in the Philippines? And I guess the extension of that question is, what age did you decide to make the move over to the Philippines on a more permanent basis?
Yeah, so I went a lot when I was younger. So when I was, I reckon, 3, 4, 5, 6, I went almost every year. And I remember going to the Philippines, and my mum's family, they're in the rural part of the Philippines in the provinces. And I remember, if we had to have a shower, we had to go outside, get a bucket of water, tip it on ourselves, rub it, scrub ourselves. What a stark contrast to here in Melbourne and Ivanhoe. I've got a lovely house, very privileged. Go there. It was really humbling growing up, getting over there and seeing that these are my family. This is what they're going through. And I didn't know I had 20 cousins. So I just had like 20 new mates that I'm running around with. So it was such a humbling experience to get over there. And then there was a huge gap between about probably 8 or 9 until literally when I was 22 or 23. I went over there with a group of mates. There was about 6 of us on an amazing trip to Boracay, which is one of the #1 destinations in Southeast Asia. And it was just a huge party time. It was unreal. And it's when I fell in love with the place again. I'll tell you the story how I got there. I remember, so I had a 1 week, amazing week with the boys, having a great time. I'm feeling the vibe. I'm like, yeah, I'm one of you guys. I'm one of the Filipinos. And after the trip, I reckon all of us was sick. I was rat shit. I had like an ear infection just from purely alcohol poisoning, and got back to Manila, and I caught up with Mum. And 3 hours before my flight, we were in a Starbucks in the city, and I'm standing there with my mum, and I get this guy tap me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Were you in Boracay last week?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was so creeped out. I was like, "Yeah, is this you?" And he shows me a photo of me in Boracay. I'm just like, "What the hell is happening here? I've got a creeper on here. I've got a stalker." And no, he goes, "No, the reason I took it because I think you can be a talent here, model, actor, blah blah blah." I'm like, "All right." And then he invited his friend who was a manager at a talent agency, and we met with him with my mum, so make sure that everything's legit, because obviously she can speak the language. And next thing you know it, 2 months later, I dropped everything and came to the Philippines just to have a crack. Just like, this felt right. Yeah.
So did you say that was in the airport on the way out of the country?
That was
almost.
That was in a Starbucks 3 hours before I left. Honestly, I didn't meet that guy. If I didn't meet that guy, I wouldn't have been in the Philippines.
Yeah, you would have just come back for a bender every 3 years, and
Pretty
that
much.
would have been it. Yeah, right. You mentioned the footy as a junior helped you kind of find your feet a little bit. How far did you end up taking it in the Australian side? And tell us about some of the people you kind of played alongside in those years.
Yeah, so back in when under 18s, the Northern Knights, I was part of a very talented group. So this is your Matthew Cruzes, Trent Cotchins, Michael Hurleys, David Zaharakis, Jack Grimes, the list goes on. So I was in that year, so I couldn't get a game. I was one of I was like the 42nd or 43rd guy on the list who's just there, just, got to just there at training making the numbers, but it wasn't that bad. But I got to play with them. I got to train with them, and didn't they just set the standards? Like just being amongst them and pushing. I remember the time trials that we had, the 3.2 Ks. It was just fierce competition. The drills, but it did feel like it was every man for himself. You knew who was going to get drafted, you knew who was in the mix, and you knew who was there to make the numbers. So it's kind of, you had that place. And then in my top end year, I actually got cut. I was the last guy to get cut in the team, in the list. So that was pretty shattering. Wow. So that was a real defining moment in my footy development, my footy career. Like, I was pretty upset. As I said in a previous podcast, it was a defining moment in terms of, it hit me hard. It was a good reality check. I was pretty emotional after it, because I never thought about playing at the highest level, but I'm someone who wants to take anything that I do to the highest that I can be, whatever that may be. And I just felt like I let myself down. And I remember that night, I bawled my eyes out, and I just promised myself I'm going to come back, and every team that I go for, I'm going to be the best trainer and the fittest guy in the list. And I made that commitment, and ever since then I've followed through with that. And from there I went and trained with the Northern Bull Ants, which was the Carlton Twos at the time. And that's where I think my footy went to the next level, because there's just no pressure. It was just like, I'm just going to do a couple of pre-seasons with them. And I did pre-seasons with them 2 or 3 years in a row, and I just got ridiculously fit, skillful, because we'd have 2-hour training sessions, 2.5 hour training sessions 3 times a week from November to March. And we're kicking footies. We're getting 1,000 touches of the footies that each day. My footy just went up. And I went back to my local club, which was Old Ivanhoe in the amateurs, and we played A grade. And I was playing on, ex-AFL players. I remember I was a tagger back then because I was young, I was fit. And I remember the best player that I tagged on was Brett Voss. So every time we played Old Haileybury, it'd be me and Brett Voss take it on. Wow. And I remember playing, I'd always take the best player from in those A grade teams. So I really learnt how to play on the best, and how to time your run, and how to make all your possessions count when you play. And then back when I was training with the VFL, we trained with guys on the Carlton list. So and I remember David Teague was coaching at the time, and it was just, the standard was incredible. The ball never hit the ground, and you stood up because of that, what was around you in that environment. So that was a big catalyst for me taking the next level in my footy.
I'd like to point out to anybody who's watching, who hasn't actually got on the Philippine Eagles podcast, that Spargs has done a 2-episode special on their podcast as well. And there's some incredible insights into that whole footy story that I loved hearing about, and I'm sure any of our viewers out there today would also love. So check that out if you haven't already.
All right, let's track back a little bit to when you arrived in the Philippines. How did you get involved with the Philippine Eagles? And what was your initial thoughts about playing footy in Asia standard-wise?
Yeah, so a couple of years before that, I lived in the States. I lived in the USA, and I was living in South California. I did a working holiday after uni, and I played US AFL, and I absolutely loved it. It was, for me, it was the ability to find a community of like-minded guys, Aussies, to play footy, and it really made my trip while I was in America. So I had that in the back of my mind before I went to Asia, that I want to play footy in Asia. And so I looked up the Philippine Eagle. I looked up Philippines AFL, and I found that there was an AFL team in the Philippines. And I watched them for a while. And on Facebook, they posted a training schedule, and it was right near my place. And I had a free afternoon, so I just went down and I saw some of the boys kicking. It's not a big grass patch. It's part of this big inner city parkland that you find the smallest patch of grass, but they were just kicking kick to kick. I just saw them and my eyes lit up. I was like, how good's this? So I went down, met the boys. They took me out that night, and just felt, because I was there for 2 months before I met them. So I didn't really have many people to bounce off. And this was my entry into that. And I instantly got along with everyone. And ever since then, I was like, yep, I'm going to commit to playing PAFL. And they talked about playing international, and that's when I really just thought, you beauty, this is a great chance to play some proper sport.
Yeah, well, fast forward to the 2013 Asian Champs in Thailand, and it was my first Asian Champs, and I vividly remember, who's this guy from the Philippines taking hangers left, right, and centre, and you're playing on a forward flank or a wing, and you were the MVP of that tournament. Do you think that was a bit of a breakthrough moment for you, or in that sense, at that given time?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I went to the Philippines. I came off a full preseason with old Ivanhoe, so I was pretty fit coming into the season, and I just kept that going. And I remember, and I mentioned this in the other podcast as Billy talked about, I almost didn't go to that Asian Champs. I didn't have a lot of cash on me at the time, and I told the boys, I told one of the guys, Hamo, that I wouldn't be able to. He's like going around asking everyone, can you come to the Asian Champs? Can you come? And I said, nah, mate, I'm sorry. I just don't have the funds in me right now. I've just moved over. Work's not going so well at the moment. And there he is there. And he, before a practice match, I told him that. And after the practice match, he came up to me. He goes, mate, pack your bags. You're going to the Asian Champs. The boys are chipping in for you. And that meant a lot to me. Like that was huge. And I don't know what, something like lit within me, and I just trained my ass off. I remember running to training. I'd train with the boys and I'd run home, and I'd do that every week. I'd run 5 times a week just to get as fit as I can, just so that I know I can make the best impact for these boys possible. And I got to the Asian Champs and I saw the big grounds. I saw the team that we got, and I just gave everything. I just didn't stop running. And I don't know, it all came together in that moment, in that Champs, and I was able to, well supported by an amazing team around me, and I just saw opportunities, and it just fell. Just when you're in flow, in those stages where things are going away, things just happened to go my way, and I was very lucky, very appreciative of that. But I put the work in for that, definitely.
Yeah, we've seen some pictures of you in your younger days, and you had a bit of puffy fat, but you've since chiseled a magnificent frame and body out of granite. What's been the success behind your transformation body-wise?
Body-wise, I think it's just that thirst to continually improve, and just healthier habits. It's just learning your body and learning what you can put your body through. So it was those early 20 years, you understand how much you can push your body and what limits. And then, in Asia, half the time you want to get pissed, half the time, you want to work out, be fit. You've got this constant balance. For those who live in Asia, the expat community there, the nightlife, that's tough to balance, because you're a young kid who wants to go out all the time, and then you want to keep fit. So I had to battle with that for the first couple of years. And then once I got that balance, got my diet right, and then just found love in working out and just getting the best out of myself, that's when my body started to change. And and my hair gives me a lot of strength. Thanks, Winner. Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of banter going on the messages. I'll just jump through a couple. Can't get to them all. But Root, who was on the podcast last week, wants to know if you could go and grab Manny Pacquiao and fire a couple of footies at him. Thinks he'd be pretty good on the hands. So wouldn't mind seeing him off the back flank next year for the Philippine Eagles. And back to the boys taking you to the pub after your first training. I think Hamo might have had some ulterior motives. I think you're not a bad wingman by the looks of it. And the Sandown Cobras have jumped on and said that through the gate, Brian, they've heard that you're pretty popular around the traps. Jumping forward and a bit more serious. Jumping forward to 2016 in the Champs in my backyard, RMIT Saigon. You were the Philippine Eagles skipper. So I mean, when you think about that already, that's a huge full circle from the kid who's not quite sure about the Filipino half of him growing up in Melbourne and trying to discover footy to being the captain of the national team. And you guys famously won the Champs. What did that mean to you, being the skipper and getting to that level?
Yeah, it meant a great deal, probably more than a lot of people know. You know, one of my evolving dreams that came out as I was a teenager was for me to be a leader of a team was huge for me. Just becoming from this child who was so low on self-esteem, so afraid to speak in public. You know, I lived with a lot of fear, and it was sport that really opened that up for me and allowed me to be the person who I am today, just by being around people who were supportive, being in that club environment where I was able to practice speaking out, being the person who I wanted to be, but withheld due to fear. You know, as I transformed myself through footy and as a person, one of the evolving dreams that I had was my dream was to stand on a podium with my teammates as a captain with a cup, you know, with a premiership cup or a championship cup, and you know that drove me. That really drove me. It's ever since I started playing senior footy, and you know, it was that part. It was the part that we did this as a group, as with the best bunch of blokes you can think of. You know, these guys. You know, I grew up in the Philippines. You know, my mid-20s. You know, I got there when I was 24 until I was 30. You know, there's some formative years there. You know, there's a lot of learning, and these guys all played mentor roles in my life, and to have them, you know, and I had so many shit moments in the Philippines. You know, like just times where I had nothing, nowhere to go. I was struggling with motivation. You know, one of the boys gave me a job at times. You know, I had a hard time at the start, and they got me through it. So I really owed a lot to the PAFL community, and that meant just a shitload to win with them, because we deserved it. We put in the hard work. You know, we're underdogs for so many years, and then to have that Filipino side, to know that is a part of me, and to do the country proud, to something, it all that blended together. It was just euphoric. It was incredible. Just to stand up there. I'll never forget on the podium with the cup, looking at everyone, but just looking at my teammates when I was speaking, and just looking at the joy, the jubilation in their eyes and in their energy. And, you know, I reckon we celebrated for 2 months at least. We let everyone know about it, I tell you what.
So Branchies popped in and said they were robbed. Now, it's actually an interesting point, because going into that day, I would have said that I think the Eagles were probably on the fourth tier of betting, behind the Dragons, the Wombats, and then it could have been the Warriors. I even thought us, the Swans at home, had a bit of a shout. We'd had that Manila Cup kind of lead up in the previous years and were a decent squad. So I felt like you guys, in my opinion, weren't. I mean, you would have been hopefully feeling confident, but how did you go into that tournament, knowing that it typically had been a tournament that was pretty hard for any of the other countries to win? We know that since then it's become a thing, but you guys were the first to kind of, you know, non-Hong Kong, Singapore to take it. How did you feel before the tournament?
Honestly, we felt so optimistic, purely because we had such a amazing preparation for the champs. 2016 was our best year by far, because we won the Manila Cup and we toured. It was our best year for touring. So I remember we went to Jakarta, we played them. We went to, which was, I think, was the best footy trip I've ever been on in my life, was with Hong Kong and Singapore. In Hong Kong, where we jumped on a junk boat after the tournament. That was just incredible. We played consistent footy together as the Eagles, and we had success doing that. And I think it was the culmination of that, getting together, playing together, and experiencing success. And that gathers momentum. And then as we were coming into the champs, our depth was incredible. We had Terry, which is our coach. He brought everyone together. He was committed. He was probably the most committed out of everyone. And that it all stems from the top. I bought into him, so I was able to help bring that energy in. And all the players built in. You know, I'm not sure if all you guys out there know this, but we had a competition going that if you couldn't make training, you had to take a selfie that you were training yourself in the gym. We went for a run. This started in 2015, and it got to a stage where we were having 10 12, 15 a week of all the boys just sending in their snaps, and that was infectious. So we knew that we had the preparation together as a team, and we had the best depth we've ever had coming into an Asian Champs. You know, we had a huge amount of players to select from, and they're all quality players, and we're all fit. So we're so lucky. There's all the stars aligned to making sure that we had the preparation, the players, and we had the fitness to withstand what was to come.
Yep. We'll go a little bit deeper in a minute into a specific game, but you've played some massive contests against the Malaysian Warriors. Would you say that they were your biggest rival over the journey?
Yeah, we had some great contests, but I think in terms of rivalry, we had a great rivalry with Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon, because we found that in the Manila Cup, barring the ones that we played you guys, where you won infamously by a point, which I still can't get over. We played off against Hong Kong so many times in those finals, and we did in the Asian Champs final in 2013. So we felt like there was always a tough contest between them, and we knew a lot of the boys. There's great relationships there. So I felt that was a great rivalry for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So you played against Malaysian Warriors in both 2016 and 2017, and you guys were hosting in 2017. So there's a lot of expectation on your shoulders as a club, reigning Asian champions. Let's just go to the grand final itself. So we brought in the new red card, yellow card rule, and this hasn't happened since, but there was a Philippine Eagles player given a red card early on in the match for a punching incident, and that was fine. That was fair enough because we were really clamping down on that type of behaviour. But during the match, there was a controversial situation, and there was a head count called, and we're still not really sure to this day whether there was extra numbers on the field. And we could go about this for hours and hours, and it's not going to achieve anything. But the Philippine Eagles put forward a protest at the post-match, and you and I spoke about this in great detail for what seemed like a long time, but it probably wasn't that in reality. You made the really admirable decision and respectable decision to accept defeat to the hands of the Warriors, giving them their first champs win. What did that make you feel like at the time? Was there any controversy in-house from your own teammates? And look, we're just really proud of it. It just shows how much we see you as a humble man that has the best interest of the game at heart. But how did that sort of situation make you feel during the time and post Asian Champs? Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, it was a challenging time. I was really tested. I was torn because we had one party who wanted to go a certain way, and when I checked in with myself, I knew that, like, at the end of the day, we weren't best on. I think we were one of the best teams on the day, but in that contest, we weren't. Malaysia played better than us in the grand final, and they deserved to win. And I checked in with the boys. I went to the boys, and I said to them, "What do you think? This is what I'm thinking." And they said, "Yeah, we're all behind you." And after a bit of back and forth, I just said, we want to win the admirable way, and this is not the admirable way. We want to be what's justice and what's fair. So, and that's where I just said, no, this is theirs. We take it back. And I felt right. It sucks losing, but we lost because we just weren't good enough in that grand final. We lost a player, and that significantly impacted us. He was arguably our best player on the day, and we lost him. So it was really tough, and we had to face that truth. And because as much as we wanted to win it, and as much as we thought we were going to win it, that's just a cold hard fact, and just accepted it, and we moved on, and we all felt right that was the right decision.
Yeah, just for our viewers out there, we did introduce that in 2017. I believe there was only a small amount of players given yellow cards in 2018, and last year, as we covered, which has worked out really, really well, there hasn't been any yellow or red cards given at last year's Asian Champs, although one, Dion Shaw, could have potentially got one at the Shanghai Cup last year, but he got away with it. Yeah, there we go.
The comments don't miss.
Look, I think that's really we all know that situation that occurred between the Singapore Wombats B team and the Indonesian Garudas, and it was right before we actually played against the Macau Lightning, and we were about to play Libya, and all of a sudden there's an all-in brawl. And I guess as a person that just recently joined AFL Asia in a coaching and umpiring development capacity, I just thought this was something that was really required. And we had that instance in the grand final, but like I said, it's been a great, innovative and incentivised approach from our perspective that's really paid off in spades. Over to you, Bill.
Yep, you've been respected enough to be selected to captain the AFL Asia Lions, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a team of players from across Asia who play the AFL China Dragons in the curtain closer after the Shanghai game each year. How much of an honour was it, firstly, to be selected in that position, to be a part of the team, and how was it to take the centre stage right after the AFL China games the last 2 years?
Yeah, it was an incredible honour. I mean, it's something that was so left field. I never expected it. And, just to be amongst some of the best Asian-born players. And, one thing that we don't realise is that how many talented, Asian Indigenous players that we have out there, considering they never grew up with the game and they just learnt it, their raw abilities of athleticism and smarts, it was profound. I was gobsmacked when I first met all the guys, and to be able to lead them was truly an honour. I never thought I'd be able to do something like that, and to do that on a centre stage after an AFL game. I remember standings in the room. We're right next to the ground. The siren's gone. The AFL players are jogging off, and you're this atmosphere of you're about to run onto the AFL ground. All the boys behind you, everyone's pumped up. There's everyone's yelling, and the energy's high. And then just running out on that just beautiful carpet of a ground, looking around at the albeit the stadium was empty, but we're running through, and it's just what an atmosphere it was. Unfortunately, the first year we did it was raining, but last year, how good was the conditions, Matty? Wasn't it just a pristine day? It was warm. It was just perfect, and the crowd stuck around because it was warm, and there was a bit of atmosphere, so you could hear some cheers when we were playing. In the first year, we only had 1 day preparation, and some of the Japanese boys came in the morning, so we only met them literally that morning. Where this time around last year, we had everyone come in on the Friday, and we had the Shanghai Cup on the Saturday, so we got to play together, and then we played the main game on the Sunday, and hence we won the main game because we were able to play together first. So that made a huge difference.
Yeah,
just what an experience being able to go there. We saw Gil McLaughlin, we saw all these these big dogs from the AFL, just having a look around, interviewing us, and just it was an incredible experience. It's something that I fondly look back at and just think, how lucky am I to experience that?
Yeah, I mean, the Vietnamese guys who have been lucky enough to join that squad have come back and absolutely raved about playing alongside you and the support you gave them. So thanks a lot for your efforts with everybody in the squad on those days. It really has been an incredible innovation in Asian footy. I think your mascot last year, Yoshi, has jumped on the messages. He's asked you for some tips on getting motivation, which I think is something that'll be right in your wheelhouse. What advice would you give Yoshi to stay motivated, maybe in his footy life?
Yeah, motivation's a hard one because motivation can come and go. You link motivation to willpower. Willpower is not sustainable. So motivation comes from setting structures in place. It's a way of being. It's something that you dedicate and you commit to. So firstly, in order to get motivated, you got to know where you're going, right? If you don't know where you're going, you're just going to be swimming around in the one place. So the first thing you'd be doing is, where do I want to go? And when you think about where you want to go, you want to release how am I going to get there? Any process. Just think about a vision for yourself where, there's just no fear. Everything's going, what would happen if you were successful? And then from there, you work back. And then once you set things in place that are real concrete, then you can start creating actions each and every day to get to that place. But you want to align a vision that's really means a lot to you, something that's going to gravitate towards you, something that when another thing comes into place, you want to stick to what you've committed to. So it has to really mean something a lot for you. I mean, I could talk about this for days, but that's just the simplest answer I can give you right now. You got to know where you're going. And once you know where you're going, then it's got to gravitate you towards it and then start putting actions into it. So for Yosh, you want to be a star AFL player, have that dream of you standing up, representing AFL Asia Lions, running around the ground after the Saints win the game against Port Adelaide. Yeah. And just see yourself up there and start working on your footy and your athleticism every single day.
There you go, Yoshi. That's a fortune worth of advice there. One more thing on the local player angle. Yeah. How important do you think the growth of local development is to footy across Asia?
Yeah, it's enormous. It's something that we undervalue. I think Indonesia are leading the way in that. They've been incredible to see what they've put into place and to see the numbers. We always talk about what it means to develop footy for AFL Asia as footy as a collective, but you don't realise what this means for the players itself, the indigenous players, right? These local players don't come from a lot. Most of them, they come in, they don't have a community. One thing that we're really lucky to have growing up in Australia and developing around our sport are the sense of community, sense of the brotherhood that we have. And a lot of these guys, the locals, don't have it. And when you bring them into a club, you've given them a new family, you've given them a new life, essentially, a new support network. So when you don't think of this as just something that's going to help spread AFL footy, you're actually going to help lives. You're going to help support lives for these young guys who knows what background they've come from. They might not be educated. They might be hanging out with the wrong people. You bring them to a footy club. You bring them into a community of like-minded people who help them develop not only as sportsmen, but as people, to give them on the straight line, to give them an education, to help them through life, give them advice, give them jobs. That's what I look at, and working with, because when I played rugby, I also captained a local rugby team. We brought, essentially our team was full of locals, and I'd just see the smile on their face coming to each training session to be around with their mates. And, I'm thinking, here's just another session, but these guys are coming in just to mix with you, to learn from you, to spend time with mates. And they stayed after training for half an hour shooting hoops with each other. Like, it's that kind of thing that you provide as a football club. Like, how good is that you can provide that for a local player? You really can help shape another human being's life just by bringing footy to them.
Yeah, we've seen many of these stories right across Asia, Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam, where there's homeless kids, orphan kids, people in their middle teens and late teens coming through NGOs and jumping on board with our clubs, and it's just giving them a lifeline and a real sense of being and something to be a part of, like a family, as you mentioned. So it means so much to us, local development, and the clubs that obviously invested it are really reaping the rewards. So thanks for sharing that in particular, Spargs. You did mention about your rugby, and we'll touch base there now. You're one of only two players that have represented the Philippines in two football codes, one being obviously AFL at the highest level in Asia as a captain, and you've also recently been involved with the Philippine Volcanoes before you returned to Australia with rugby union. Can you give us a bit of an understanding as to how that all developed and evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was playing footy, the PAFL tried to get a lot of rugby guys in. So we had a few rugby guys play footy, and they played really well. And over the years, in my first couple of years that I was there, they kept getting into my ears, Spargs, you should play rugby. And then eventually I was just like, stuff it, let's do it. So I went down to one of the clubs, and I was hopeless, man. I didn't know where to run. I didn't know how to pass. It was just it was horrible. But all they said to me was, stand on the side, you're in the wing, grab the ball and run forward, run straight, and just put the ball down in between the lines after the goalpost, which I did struggle a few times to do. I either went over the line, so it went out of bounds, or I fumbled and I went through some very embarrassing times, especially in major tournaments. But it was all worth it. And I loved the professionalism at playing. I love playing competitive sport. And, I saw this as a chance to fulfill another lifehood dream, which was to play elite sport, to play top level sport. And I wasn't going to do it playing AFL. So I just thought, if there's ever going to be a chance to do it, it's going to be playing rugby. So I just thought, I'm going to play rugby. I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to give everything because I want to play at the top. I want to play top level. So it was in 2016, I made that commitment to myself, and I got into the Philippine Volcanoes development teams, played a lot of shit games, just a lot of mistakes, but just got better and better. And then eventually I got invited into the elite program and just kept getting after it. And then 2017, I got the call up to one of the training camps where we go away for 14 days and you train literally once, twice a day, live and breathe rugby as a professional, and ended up making the 2017 Southeast Asia Games and representing the Philippines in Kuala Lumpur, and played in front of 15,000 people. It was an unbelievable experience. I was still a bit of a spud at that time, but I was athletically great. So that's what got me in. And my ability, what got me into rugby was, and they even said, the reason you're in this team is because you're the only one who can take a high ball. So when we kick off in a sevens game, they kick it right in the air. I'm the only one who can take it in at the highest point in the hands, because they're not taught that in rugby. So that was my weapon. Unfortunately, there weren't other many weapons, but that was my weapon. So I really flaunted it and made sure that I was fit and strong, and that got me. And you talk about before, Matty, about keeping fit and shaping the body that I did now. A lot of it was, I had to in rugby. I had to build myself up so that, because I'm crashing into 100 kilo, 110 kilo guys on the field. Even though it's 7, so it's quick, but I had to be able to take the hits. And so I just smashed the gym, smashed my running. I got fit as I've ever been. I was doing four or 5 sessions a day in the gym, and just as much training. So I was just flying in those last couple of years.
Spargs, you pressed on that you played at some really good tournaments. Some of our viewers might not be aware that last year you played for the Philippine Volcanoes in the Rugby Sevens Olympic qualifiers.
Yeah.
So this is real serious now. Where do you rate that in comparison to, say, winning the 2016 Asian Champs on comparative levels?
From terms of the Asian Champs meant more to me from a heart perspective. So this is something that was dear to my heart, that I had since a young age, that just, it meant the world to me. Whereas that moment playing in the Olympic qualifiers was the best level of sport that I've ever played in my life. Like, I remember running out against China. This was for 3rd place. I remember standing in a scrum, and I got quite a bit of game time in this competition. Usually I didn't get a lot, but they put me in early. I was standing in a scrum against this other guy from China, and he's just like me, big ass. And I'm looking him in his eyes and just like, it's my country against your country right now. And just that feeling was just unreal. And you could cut the tension in the air. That's how it was out there. I've never played in a game like that before, where everything was on the line and you're playing against elite athletes who are all just as fit and big and stronger than you are. So that really whet my appetite for playing at the highest level possible sport. Whereas the Asian Champs was just something that was in my heart, that a childhood dream that I was able to fulfill.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit embarrassed to go down this route, but this is one of Maddie's questions. I did a 70-kilometre mountain marathon a couple of weekends ago, but not in any way the approach that you've taken to your sports, which is getting to the highest level and giving it your absolute best. I did zero training, and I knew from the get-go that it was going to be about slow and steady, not. And so I just wanted to ask, from the endurance side, what sort of challenges have you undertaken, and what sort of advice would you give for people for building up that type of fitness?
So we're talking about endurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've got a funny story, actually. So have you guys heard of Spartan races?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I never did one. And my first Spartan race, I signed up to a 5 kilometer Spartan race. So there was 2 options, the 5 and the 21. So I thought I'll start with the 5. And I started running and I bolted out and I was ahead of everyone. I just thought, you beauty, I'm going to win this. So I was my eyes lit up. I was loving it. I was smashing the obstacles. And then about probably 25, 30 minutes in, I'm just like, shouldn't I be done by now? And I'm running and I'm running along. And I'm just like, someone was running next to me and goes, excuse me, how are we going here? Where are we at? And he goes, oh, you're in the 21 kilometer. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. And then, so I had 2 options. Do I go back and face humiliation, or do I finish what I started? And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to finish what I started. So I ended up smashing it. I finished it in under 3 hours, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Just under 3 hours, because it was obviously you're in the middle of the desert. You're going up and down obstacles.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I had my top was off. I was going under this barbed wire, dirt in my face. Just like, what am I doing? I'm cramping everywhere. I got no water on me. I've got no gels. And I really had to dig deep. And just thinking, I've got to finish it. I've got to finish it. So that's what drove me in. And I think it's when you talk about endurance, it's preparation firstly. So you really got to be prepared for what you're doing, which I wasn't that day, but I would definitely prepare for it next time. So it's gradually building up. Building up the distances slowly to build your endurance, but also changing it with speed training. So you might do, 4 sets of different paces, 4 or 5 sets of different paces, building up that way. And at the end of the day, endurance is mental. It's a mental game, as you know, Billy. When you're, for you doing 70K, if you're 50K down the road, you're just like, you're hurting, all you want to do is stop, but something keeps you going, and that's your why. So why are you doing it? So when you do endurance racing, you got to understand what is your why, and that's going to be burning in front of your face. You've got to remember that every single time. Why am I doing this? And it becomes a part of you, becomes your identity. This is who I am. I am an endurance athlete, and that's what I was telling myself throughout that race is I can do this. I am an elite athlete. I can do this. And that's what got me through the shit running up hills and when I had nothing left. So it's really having that why and that preparation.
Yeah. We've touched on a lot of your sporting success, but you've done really well off the field as well. You've emceed some incredible events. You've had the modelling opportunities come up. How important has it been for you to build your personal brand as your life's kind of been evolving?
Yeah, it's been very crucial because I feel as though as I've developed as a person, so has my brand, I guess, as you can say, as much as I don't want to say it, but your brand, your profile goes up. As the more I build as a person, the more I can offer, and the more you can offer and offer in this world, I believe the more you expand your brand and the more that you can build your profile. So I'm a big believer in the more you give, the more that you'll receive. And it's been correlation between the two. So the more that I've been able to develop as a person, the more I've been able to offer, the higher my profile has got become, or the great opportunities that have come my way. So, it's a great lesson that the more that you can help people, provide solutions, offer, what your gifts that you've got and your strengths to others, you will get rewarded in different ways, whether that's profile, whether it's monetary, whether it's, community and support. It's such a great life lesson that the more that we give, the more that we receive.
You're a very humble man, Spargs. You just spoke about your brand, and your brand's on a number of different levels. And we probably don't have enough time to go dig really deeply into it. But I guess the last couple of years you've got into the life coaching, and it's been a really important part of your development and also your career pathway. How did you firstly get involved, and what do you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, I guess I was really introverted growing up as a kid, and one of my strengths, I guess, was listening. And I remember a quote that changed my life when I was younger. It was, you can, I can't remember it now, but it was more around the lines, you can learn, by Dale Carnegie, you can make friends or learn. You can make friends more by listening to them in 2 hours than you can by talking about yourself in 2 months. I think it's something like that. So it's really about emphasizing on listening to other people. And because I was so introverted at that age, I had that in the back of my mind moving forward as my philosophy. So I always just started to listen to people first. And that was, I've kept that ever since I am as an adult now, is always to give people time, listen to them so I can learn about them and learn how I can approach that person and how I can potentially add value to that person. And growing up, in my 20s, I did some great things, model, blah, 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 host, whatever, but it wasn't fulfilling for me. And it wasn't until I got coached myself and I got through some real tough barriers, some inner barriers. So I faced a lot of demons. As we grow up, we hold stories in our minds that we develop as a child, and being able to let go of that and to be able to deal with that, a lot of it's resentment, that we go resentment towards, particularly sometimes our parents, people around us, to ourselves. And we have these beliefs that we carry from our young years. And for me, it was like, I had stories in my mind telling me that I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not worthy enough. And this was affecting me as an adult. So it was my ability to face those, demons and barriers through coaching that I felt this incredible sense of freedom and peace in me. And when I was on this high at the time, I think it was about 27, 28, I was like, in this state of freedom, I said to myself, I want to help people achieve the same, because everyone deserves to feel how I feel right now. And so I kept that feeling, and I dedicated my life from that moment to be a coach and help others to feel what I felt, to achieve that freedom and peace. So I've gone on that path of becoming, the best coach that I can be ever since then. And now that I've climbed the ranks as a coach, I'm now fortunate enough to deliver coach training now. So I do train coaches, and I also still coach people who are wanting to let go of things that aren't serving them anymore and transform themselves into the person we all deserve to be.
Just touching on that, Spargs, as part of your practicum and, getting a certain amount of hours up your sleeve as part of your coursework, I was fortunate enough to have a few sessions with you. And, I was going through a really difficult phase and patch of my life. And I'm certainly grateful for all the help you've done and consider you as a life mentor and a really close mate. Not that we see each other that often, but just that brotherhood. I just want to really thank you for that. But how important is self-care during the COVID-19 in particular?
Mate, it's the most important thing, because we find that in this period, we spend a lot of times by ourselves. And for most people, it's different. It's a weird feeling to be isolated by yourself with not a lot of interaction. And what comes up for us is that a lot of self-talk comes up. We can start listening to what we're telling ourselves. And that is crucial, because as people, we run on stories. We create stories for ourselves, which shape our reality. And if your story that you're telling yourself, right, is debilitating you, is not serving you, well, then, you're never going to be moving forward. And that's one of the culprits of why we might feel anxious or stressed or whatever it is that we might be feeling during this period. So it's really important for us to sit down, listen to what these stories are, ask if there's any truth in it. And most often than not, there isn't any truth. And then you have the ability to change that story. And that is what I believe is self-care. It's changing the story to what is really true about us. That we deserve everything that we want in this world, and the happiness, the peace, the freedom, the joy, and that kind of thing. That's what we deserve. Yet we don't give it to ourselves. In order for us to feel those amazing feelings and states of being, we can't expect it from anyone else. And I think this period of time now in isolation is teaching us to give us what we really need. And that's it. It's the attention, it's the care, it's the love, it's the joy, it's the happiness that we all crave, but we need to give it to ourselves first. And once we're in that state of being, you'll find solutions to your challenges. You find that you'll put yourself out there more. You find that you'll offer services that you didn't think were there. You find that your work starts getting better, your relationships start getting better, all because you've looked after yourself first. And that comes from self-care. So it's understanding the stories you're telling yourself and changing it to what is real for you and what's going to help you moving forward.
brilliantly put.
Yeah, so your life coaching career path over the last few years has actually led you back to Melbourne. How's that going in a work sense, but also how are things going back in Melbourne? How have you found it since you've been back?
Yeah, it's a great question because I never thought I'd come back to Melbourne this early. I loved Asia, and I always thought I was going to stay there. I was going to stay there for a while, whether it was in the Philippines or I'd go somewhere else. But I was last year, I kind of sat back down. I finished my rugby tours, and I actually just assessed my life, and I said, look, I've achieved everything I've wanted to in the Philippines. So what's next? I know where my career wants to go. And that's when I just put it out there and said, what am I going to do next? And so I was searching for answers, and I was actually on a trip in Bali at the start of the year with the academy that I did my coaching with. And in that Bali trip, I didn't expect it, but they offered me to partner with them and bring this academy into Australia. They're in 40 different countries except for Australia for some reason. So it was kind of just like, wow, all the doors opened up for this moment. And I felt like this was the time was right to go back to Melbourne. And so I took that opportunity, and I've come back. And despite the cold, which I hate, hence why I put the heating on as high as I can so I can wear shorts and a singlet every day. But I've enjoyed it. It's great being back in that Western society. Unfortunately, I don't think the footy's I was going to play footy this year, actually. But I think that's going to be called off because of what's happening right now. But, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being back in Melbourne, I think. But I do miss Asia a lot. And who knows what will happen next. But for now, I know the next few years will be here in Melbourne.
Yeah, I've just removed the banner that we've had up so everyone can see your Eagles singlet. Do you want to pop back?
There we go, the Philippine Eagles.
Yeah. You mentioned you might one day look to get back to Asia. I'm pretty sure the Swans have got an opening in the centre. So let us know if you need any help. Plenty of life coaching needed. We need plenty of life coaching here as well. So you'd be very welcome.
We're just about at the hour mark, boys. We'll make it a bit of a shortened Trouble Talks friendly fire round very shortly. But firstly, just thanks to our Trouble Sports sponsorship, our preferred apparel provider, and thanks to big David Lake and the team. If you've got anything that your club needs in the with your team Guernseys or any stuff that you need for your footy club, jump on board with Lakey and the boys, and they'll sort you out pretty quickly and smartly. Just breaking news out of the AFL. Sidebottom has been given 4-game match suspension due to breaking COVID-19 protocols. So over to you, Bill, for the Tribal Sports friendly fire round with Billy Bang Bang Krang and his spot fires.
All right, here we go.
All righty. So what nicknames have you gone by over the journey?
Obviously Spargs, Spartacus. What else? Geez, I can't remember. I don't know. Everyone just calls me Spargs, really.
Yeah. Nothing too left field.
Nothing too left field, no.
So how many years of Asian footy did you end up playing?
7 years.
7 years. And were there 2020 champs? Were you going to be on the pitch again? Probably in Pattaya?
I was planning on it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. 2021, possibly.
Yeah.
What's your favourite position?
Favourite position? Centre half forward.
Yeah, right. Favourite number? 23. You mentioned your unfortunate AFL team. Who do you think's the best player in AFL Asia?
AFL Asia. Well, I haven't played for a couple of years, but I'll give you a couple. First one, I told you I was in Bali earlier this year. So when I was in Bali, Ola took me down to Bali Gecko's training. And I've met Jack before, but we played on each other. And although, I was coming off a 10-day on the piss, so I wasn't in the greatest shape, but I was running around with him and I was watching him. And I reckon he'll be one of the best players in Asia for many years. He was very impressive to watch. And so he was a clear standout. I just want to make mention too as well, a lot of guys don't know in AFL Japan, Michito, obviously Matty, you know him very well. He's a very humbled guy, and he learnt his footy, late in the piece. And I reckon he's just one of the superstars of AFL Asia. it's a pity that not many people know him because he was one of the best players that I've played with, honestly, in that AFL Asia Lions.
Yeah. Just on that, look, people aren't aware because Mitch Tull's never played at an Asian Champs ever. But look, he did a pre-season with Essendon back in, I think, 2006 or 2007. And he played in a trial match. It was a 16-a-side or 17-a-side against the Sydney Swans. But of recent times, in the 2017 AFL International Cup, he was named the MVP for Division 2. So, look, he's won probably a swag of medals over here in AFL Japan at the top league here, but hasn't made it across to an Asian Champs and is in the twilight of his career. But, yeah, he's up there with yourself, probably the best Asian footballer I've come across, definitely.
All right. Who's your best teammate? And we'll keep it to Asia.
Best teammate?
Yeah.
Easy. Winner Santos.
Okay. Most annoying teammate? This one might not be so easy. Could be a few more candidates.
Very easy. No, it's not. Sorry, there's a couple. Deza or Hamo. And I say that because I love them.
Yeah. Most difficult opponents?
Geez, I've had a lot of great opponents, great tussles. A lot of tags. I think one of the best tags was Shorey. We had a great tussle in the Asian Champs, so I enjoyed it. Yeah. He was my sparring partner for a while. I enjoyed playing against him. There we go. There it is.
Sorry, I just had to scroll up a little bit, but like I said, the comments don't miss.
Big shout out to Shorey.
What's been your best AFL Asia memory?
Holding up the cup 2016. You can't beat that. That was just
What's your favourite meal?
Chicken parmigiana. Easy.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs. Coffee
or tea?
Coffee.
Your favourite holiday destination? I think you've been to a few.
Yeah, there's so many. I'd put either Siargao in the Philippines. I reckon that'd be one of my top. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. You can invite any 4 people in the world to a dinner party. Who would they be?
4 people. Okay, so for inspiration, I'd have Tony Robbins. For genius, I'd have Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. Who else would I have on there? For a bit of eye candy, / I'm in love with her, is Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot.
Yep.
And the last one would be, I just put MJ in there purely just to rub off in his just status and
What do you like most about playing footy in Asia?
The community. It's the families that you build along the way and the support that you get from the boys. That's just, it shapes who you are, honestly.
Yep. And what would be 3 things that people don't know about you?
Oh, wow. God.
We told you this would be different to the PAFL podcast.
Yeah, definitely. God, I have no idea. 3 things. Oh, okay. I'll get some stuff. When I was growing up, I was a choir boy. Wow. I had an angelic voice, would you believe? That's gone now.
Did you lose that after the champs in Saigon?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
We've had some Apocalypse Now comments throughout this podcast. I can imagine that night.
Yeah. That's all I can
think. One. Yeah, that'll do. Your best footy trip? Would it be Jakarta or anything else?
No, the best footy trip was the one in Hong Kong with Singapore and Hong Kong, and we played in that tri-series where just great footy, awesome footy. We just lost, but then it was the junk boat afterwards, which is the highlight. And then afterwards, we're at one of the sponsored pubs in Hong Kong, and we started to squat each other. So that became a thing. We started to get each other on a fireman's carry and started squatting each other. And I'll never forget the moment where someone tried to pick up one of the boys, and I'll remain keep nameless, and just almost split his head open because he didn't work.
Yeah. In your opinion, what does the future of AFL Asia look like, and how can the sport impact local communities across the region?
Yeah, I think the future's bright, especially with the new appointment of a full-time development officer. I think that's going to be huge for us, just to be able to create programs. I think in order to develop, you need to create structure in the different countries. So something set in place that, at this time, this is going to happen. This is the development. This is the pathway. And I think that's what Indonesia's leading the way with. Yeah. Everything's clear. They have clarity on what they're offering. And if we do that in most of the Asian countries, we just set that platform, we're going to start attracting people into that. And as I said before, getting these local guys into these systems, you'll see that they'll own it and they'll love it and they'll develop as people as a result of that. So I just think that getting those in place is what's going to be the catalyst for AFL Asia to expand even more so than it already has, which, Maddie and the team have been doing such a brilliant job over the last few years and don't get enough credit for it. So I think you guys have, and the committee have done a wonderful job in that space.
Yep. That's the end of the tribal friendly fire round. But Keezy wants to know, how did you feel post Manila Cup in 2015? And was that your biggest disappointment?
Yeah, it was. Let's just say I shed a tear after that. I was pretty disappointed. There was a shit night afterwards as well, although I know you had a great night, Billy, so that's all that counts.
Yeah, that was all that counted. Hamo was pretty quick pointing out. I don't know if that was 2013 or 14 where we missed that kick in the back line and got you guys into the final also by the tiniest margin. So that's it for the Tribal Talks friendly fire round.
Thanks very much, Bill. Got one there from Hamo, but that's obviously just been talked about. Now, Spargs, is there just a short message for any Asian-born footballers who are going to watch this or watch it in the future that you can give them some inspiring words, please?
Yeah, just to all the Asian-born footballers out there, just to commit to the club wholeheartedly, get in there and just do your best, athletically on the field, but also, open up to the guys around you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for advice, because they're all more than willing to help you and support you, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We're all in our positions that we're in overseas and we want to help each other. And that's the best part of being part of an AFL Asia community and a club. So just get there, become involved, get to know all the guys, open up to them, ask for advice and ask questions, and let be seen. Let yourself be seen to these guys and open up. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I know a lot of I can empathize with them. They can be shy. It's hard to open up in front of a big group of Aussies of coming in. So, but if you push through and you commit to it, you break through that initial fear, the world will open up for you. So, please dedicate yourself to the community, to the club, and you'll really develop as a person.
Thanks for your inspiring words, Spargs. You've been an outstanding interviewee on our podcast today, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got a few goosebumps from time to time, and I think it's been our favourite one, Bill, so far, but there's plenty more to come. But look, thanks very much, Spargs, for joining us. You've been absolutely brilliant, a legend of AFL Asia and the footy community and the footy family we have here in AFL Asia, and thanks very much for joining us.
No, thanks, Matty. Thanks, Bill. You guys are doing a great job. Really enjoying it. And I know the AFL Asia community love watching you guys each and every week. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Spargs.
Thanks, Spargs. And from Billy Bang Bang Krang and Matty Gale, Evan Spargo, thank you very much. You've enjoyed our podcast episode number 7, How Good's Footy in Asia. It's been fantastic. We look forward to speaking to you again next week. Thanks for joining us.